What am I even looking at? Why do I turn my head? Anyway, yeah, hi internet. Welcome to another episode of I don't know what I'm doing with my car. Actually, on a serious note, yeah, I'm doing some bits of welding, finally getting around to it. So I'm going to be welding some stuff on that bit there, the end of the sill, to try and get rid of the big, horrible, nasty, rusty holes. Always use subcentric spacers. As you can probably see, I've got pretty much a big metal jigsaw puzzle to deal with. You've kind of got to tackle it in layers. I mean, like I mentioned before, the last video, my dad kind of came over, helped me cut out this whole section, and he literally said, just chop this out and weld a plate over. You know, obviously you had bits of the sill, the outer sill coming out underneath here, which had rusted through. The whole inner skin here completely rusted, outer bits of the sill completely rusted. Just the kind of edges of the outer sill, I kind of cut them back so that rather than just working with a tricky little corner, I could use a whole replacement piece. So basically these are bits of a wheel arch, replacement wheel arch and a replacement sill. And I've kind of cut them out, clamped them together just for now, just for fitting. But I'll probably start off with welding in the bottom one here, and then figuring out how I tackle part of the inside. I'll probably do this inside plate as two pieces. I'm getting Curist stuff all over my hands, it's still not dry. So this essentially goes here. So we'll end up with two big plates on the outside and two big-ish plates on the inside. I did that bit before, I haven't ground down the welds yet, they're a bit sketchy. I was messing around with the welder settings. So yeah, basically I've got the same issue as this on the passenger side, and a similar issue behind the front wings at the front of the sill. It's basically where, kind of as the wheel's spinning in here, all the kind of crud, I guess, just piles up, and Ford decided to have a little drain pipe that comes through from the sunroof and just dump all the water in there. So yeah, along with the foam that used to be inside there, it's as if Ford just decided they wanted these things to rust. Yeah, fun times. Hopefully that Curist's set now. I can start to spray over with some primer. Why do I say it stupid? Primer. So yeah, zinc, etch primer, weld through kind of stuff. So I'm just spraying over all the kind of bare bits of metal that I've been cutting down to coat it with a few light coats of this stuff. Yeah, technically it's weld through, so it should be okay. I shouldn't need to clean up too much before I weld. Whilst I'm waiting for that stuff to dry, thought I'd have a look back here where I've already cut away. That's the replacement panel. Originally I was thinking of just marking up that entire shape and just replacing it as is. There's a little bit more good metal there than I was expecting. But the inside, the inner skin, is a lot worse than the outer skin. Primer's drying on that before I can do anything else to it. Have a look at the rest here. Okay, so just that leading edge down there, that's the bit I've got to deal with. And also patch up that small hole there. And obviously the rest of the arch is pretty ruined. But I'm going to be cutting out most of that stuff just because I'm putting on my bolt-on JDM arches, fender flares, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, like I was just showing, that leading edge there needs just cutting straight out. It's not really salvageable. Yeah, and obviously it's just all chewed up. I can't weld to it, so I need a nice clean edge. Either following the curve, I might just go straight, just because it's easier to cut another straight edge for the replacement piece that I'll weld in. Welding is pretty tricky when you've got strange shapes and odd gaps and stuff. You need nice clean lines and stuff, kind of butting up just nicely and as little gap as possible. Well, that's what I figured anyway. So yeah, chop this bit out. Well, that was the worst job ever. That was disgusting. This stuff looks like yellow turds, smells like piss. Was all up inside the rear quarter. I did get, obviously, there was loads stuck to this area here, but there was loads up inside, and I could see a little bit, and I thought, I need to just scrape that out before I start cutting and welding anymore. Don't want the thing bursting into flames. So yeah, found loads of the stuff. Spent most of my time doing that. May not get around to welding it tonight now. So I painted up what I had there just to try and protect it. Primered it and sprayed it over with some black, just to tidy it up and just to keep the moisture out. Anywhere where I'm going to be welding, I'm going to grind it clean, just so I've got nice clean metal to weld to. So before I call it a night, I will treat all this stuff with Q-Rust and throw on some zinc primer, and yeah. It's New Year's Day, I'm tired, it's freezing cold. Back in the garage to try and get this welding done on the sill and the rear lower corner quarter panel bit area under carriage thing. You know the bit I've shown you. So it's pretty much these two bits need to go on the end of the sill, and that bit needs to be welded in. Right, I can't quite remember whether I showed you the edge of this piece before. This is the bit that goes bottom half of the sill. This edge was really all wrinkly and wobbly. Stop focusing on the wrong thing. You can still see there's a few little kind of weird bends and stuff in there. Yeah, it's still not perfectly straight, but I've got a very simple hammer and dolly set, as well as that piece of wood. So yeah, just basically putting it on the corner here and just tapping on it, and then to make sure it's not warping too much any one way, I was then turning it this way, tapping out that flat edge there, so that I can get it relatively straight. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but I'll keep going at it just to flatten it out before I weld it in. I'm really starting to hate doing bodywork. It's yeah, it's just so frustrating. So as I've kind of said, I'm still kind of learning how to weld as I'm going, so the welds look ugly as sin. I'm going to grind them up and see how they look. I know for a fact there's a few pinholes in there. I've shone a torch through, and you can just, if you get like a really bright, like clear white LED light, I've got one down there. Quite a small one, works quite well for putting it in little awkward spots to put it behind some of the welds and have a look, see where the light's coming through. This is an auto darkening helmet. It's really good piece of kit. However, the kind of sensor bit that senses when there's a bright light and dims the visor, at one point I was working with that. I didn't realise was kind of in the shade, so to speak. Had my head close to the wheel arch, and the flash from the weld was kind of hidden from the sensor, so it wasn't dimming, and yeah, so ended up with still got a few kind of bright white spots floating around my vision. So yeah, be really careful with where you're positioning your head when you're wearing your helmet. At least I learned something, and I've learned that I'm not very good at welding. So first couple of patches of letting weren't actually as bad as I thought once I ground some of the welds back. Annoyingly, this top half here, I think whilst I was trying to position it with magnets and stuff, it kind of moved. So yeah, there still might kind of look almost there on the outside in terms of putting rot-free metal in. And then of course I've got the actual hole on the inside, which was the original problem. So yeah, welding is sometimes satisfying, sometimes stupidly frustrating. If you've got money, pay somebody to do it. I can't really afford to send this car to get all the welding done. So yeah, I haven't been in the garage for a while. Just been busy with work since coming back in the new year. It's a freezing cold morning. Got the man flu. So what better day to get back to it. So the aim today is to get this car jacked back up, finish welding inside there behind the new piles that I put in, and hopefully patch up little holes here and weld in that new outer skin there. So I just wanted to show how well these little cardboard templates work. What I've done is the hole that I had on the kind of inside bit of the end of the sill, cut out a rough shape, and you can kind of push the card in and it'll kind of deform to, you know, because it's pretty thin, and you can kind of press on it and figure out where certain lines are, and it's much easier obviously to cut this stuff out than to go straight to metal. So cutting a larger area and trimming kind of little bits bit by bit until you get into the hole that you wanted, and it's kind of butting up as close as possible, and then pretty much laying that on top of some sheet metal, tracing it out and using it as a template to get a nice new replacement piece. The camera light is going crazy because of the reflections here. Whoa. Anyway, so yeah, you can see how using the cardboard, and rather than kind of measuring and eyeballing it and stuff, all the kind of frustrating weird little niggly bits were kind of done on the cardboard. There's quite a bit of trimming and stuff. I had to kind of trim a few mil off kind of each edge just to bring the overall size of the shape down, because it was just a bit too big to slot in there. So yeah, cereal boxes. So what I'm going to do is spray this thing with weld through primer on front and back, and just so that the inside is actually all sprayed up and isn't going to rust so fast, and then weld it in. Okay, so yeah, I've welded that plate in. Went a bit kind of better than planned, but still not perfect. So yeah, I'll grind down the welds, and I'll probably seam seal it. I wasn't going to use any seam sealant really, but I think I'm going to, just to make sure that any little pinholes or anything are nicely sealed up. Yeah, that might be a while though. Back to work tomorrow, so it's looking better. So I skipped filming on a couple of days down in the garage because most of it was just trying to find spot welds, and which was completely unsuccessful. I ended up just cutting some of the panel away, grinding through it, because some of the spot welds were pretty difficult to find. So yeah, I'm going to be welding in some new bits on the inner skin for that rear lower quarter, and then hopefully welding in the outer skin. Now I've got something I wanted to try out, bear with me. Like I said, bear with me. This stuff, it's Lincoln brand flux core wire. Even with some of the metal kind of cleaned up, quite well. It's just getting loads of big kind of blobs of, kind of look like little ball bearings of weld just spattering everywhere, and some of the penetration's not too good even when it's kind of turned up. God, I was holding the camera way too close to my face then, sorry for you guys having to witness that. So yeah, I'm going to pop this in the welder and do another little test fit of some of the bits I've cut, and yeah, try and weld some more bits in. Oh yeah, another thing I'm going to do soon hopefully is fit lowering blocks on the back. Fit lowering blocks on the back. I do have two pairs here, but they're both different. They were donated to me by some friends. They look completely different designs, so I'm not too sure whether either of them is right. So I might buy a new set. They're only like £25. Okay, so ready to weld a little repair piece for the inner skin. I cut the section for the outer skin here from the wheel arch repair panel, and I used that because the curves are quite similar on the inside skin to to create a replacement panel for inside there. Another thing is worth noting, that thing in there is a welding blanket, fireproof and heatproof and what have you, and what I've got under there is the fuel tank. Obviously welding in this area, I mean it's not going to be so bad welding from the outside here onto that, but at some point I'm going to be underneath the car welding the lower edge, which kind of folds underneath, and at that point there's going to be sparks and stuff quite close to that fuel tank. So to make sure I don't blow myself up or set myself on fire or just generally maim myself, well, my welds aren't great, they're ugly as hell, but this welding wire, the Lincoln flux core, is so much better. I mean, my welds are still ugly as anything. You can see just tiny little specks of, I don't know if you can kind of see, you know, these like little kind of tiny little ball bearings. It's weld spatter really. There's only a tiny amount of that stuff being produced with this wire. Usually there's loads of it, and it's pretty big, to the point of it's like wider than some of the actual welds there. So this is where I'm at the moment with the repairs. It's about a week since I last worked on it, so what I've done is put some Q-Rust all over it, and I've coated that with zinc etch primer and then painted it up on the inside there, because I'm not going to be able to access the inner skin once I've welded this on. So yeah, I've got it all clamped all the way along the bottom edge. Got one over there. The one place I can't get a clamp in is here, so I'm going to have to push that in and just try and put a tack or two there just to hold that piece in. I decided not to deal with the dent here just yet. Even though I've cut that bit off, it didn't really give me any better access. But there is access inside the boot, so there's a big kind of hole on one of the inner panels in there. So yeah, I'll weld this in. I'll deal with that dent after. Some other time, God knows when. So I've tack welded that into place. So what I'm going to do now is clean up the welds that are already there a little bit, just with a wire brush, and then basically tack all the way, loads of tacks, just until it becomes one continuous weld. That's the plan anyway. Still not too sure what I'm going to do with that big hole there. So I carried on with the welding. So yeah, the overall kind of shape isn't too bad. The welds are a little thick, so there's some bits that will really need grinding down quite a bit. The weather is awful. It's getting really bad out there. May as well just stay in here. So yeah, the only bit that I haven't welded is this hole here. I'll come back to that in a bit. The other bit that I need to do now is the inner to outer skin across the bottom there. So yeah, we're getting somewhere. Finished up the welding on this panel. There's a tiny bit left to do around in the wheel arch there, but I'm going to wait until I cut and weld the rear arch because I'm not too sure how that part's going to meet. But yeah, that panel is in. Yes, very pleased with that actually. Managed to weld up that gap here. I put it onto the lower setting, put a bead along one edge, well, a series of tacks along one side, and then a series of tacks on the other side, and then a series of tacks in the middle. So yeah, that was a success. It's gone on much better than the previous two panels that I put in over there, the exterior panels. So yeah, pleased with that. Success! Success! What I want to have in place first is lowering blocks on the back, so that when I do the rear arch I know where I want to position it over the wheel. Yeah, I'll probably be doing a video on putting lowering blocks on the back soon. I think that's pretty much it for the second episode. Third one's going to be about bike carbs. I've had a set of bike carbs arrive. I've already recorded a little bit, just going over those. So yeah, the next time will be bike carbs. Peace.